Hello everyone, so as we all know, the Trench Crusade map was revealed recently and there are a number of Easter eggs and mini reveals in its artwork. Now, I'm no Latin expert, so I'll leave those clues to those of you that are. But let's dive in and explore the lands of the great powers who hold back the fetid dark. Let's start off with one of my favourite hints in the map, Baba Yaga's house. I said I wanted Baba Yaga's house kicking warwolves in the face. So I suppose I told you so. So who is Baba Yaga? For those of you that don't know, Baba Yaga is a character in Slavic folklore, a witch crone who lives in a hut that strides, or in some cases hops, through the woods on chicken legs or sometimes a single chicken leg. She also flies around in a mortar, and while she can often be the antagonist of tales she appears in, she is not wholly evil and occasionally helps out the story's heroes. Depending on the story she is being used to tell, she has a duality to her personality. In some tales, she is a repulsive old hag that eats children. In others, she is a helpful old woman that assists the hero. With her magical abilities, strong association to the forests and its wildlife, and morally grey personality, I could easily see her being an independent, co-belligerent fighting alongside the faithful. I'll be very interested in further lore on her and whether or not she'll be a neutral entity available for use in either heretic or faithful warbands as a powerful mercenary, or if she'll be limited to the faithful warbands and their Slavic-inspired sub-factions, a Golden Khanate. Now, I did wonder if we'd get an appearance from the Mongolian Empire, and I think we can be pretty certain that this is it. I don't really know how they'll look on the tabletop. I could see them being an Iron Sultanate sub-faction, but given their rapid assault tactics, I can also easily see an outside bet for them being trench pilgrims. The nomadic nature of the pilgrims, along with the faster playstyle and melee abilities, I could see them being a perfect fit for these, with a possible ranged cavalry support instead of anchorites. The Kingdom of Perm. Great Perm, or the Principality of Perm, is a historical region along the Kama River in Russia. Please excuse any pronunciation that I may do on some of these foreign names. I may butcher them, but I will try my best. So Perm was formerly independent of Novgorod in our own history until about 1471. It seems in Trench Crusade it has kept this independence. Perm is a port city with a large industrial, scientific and cultural importance in the region. In Trench Crusade these may well be a new Antioch sub-faction with technological advancements similar to the Free State of Prussia. Moving on then to the Tzardom of Novgorod. Now, as far as I'm aware, the medieval Republic of Novgorod existed in what is now northern Russia between the 12th and 15th centuries. In Trench Crusade, much like in our own history, they occupy the northern territories of Russia, and I could easily see these leaning heavily into a new Antioch sub-faction with very tough units hardened by their time in the Frozen North. Lore-wise, I imagine, like the Kalmar Union, they are constantly dealing with incursions from demons from the northern Hellgate. I would love to see some heavy-hitting units that excel in attrition warfare with a leaning towards more damaging mechanics like gas, fire and shrapnel weaponry to act as a force multiplier for those heavy-hitting elites that they would field. If we look at Alba's attachment for a bit of inspiration, I can see the warriors of the Tsardom gaining easier access to keywords like strong and tough. However, due to the meat grinder attrition warfare I would expect from that region, to balance out their powerful warriors we may see a limited equipment list, or possibly a ducat limit for units like the yeoman, much like the wretched in the Heretic Legions and Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent. Next we'll move on to the Principality of Kiev, the Kyivan Rus and the Cossacks. In our own world history, the Kyivan Rus was an area spanning parts of Ukraine, Russia and Belarus ruled by monarchies, and in the context of Trench Crusade will most likely draw from its heavy influence of Orthodox Christianity. Much like the Tzardom of Novgorod, I could see them being a hardy fighting force with resistance to the fear mechanic. In contrast to my thoughts on the Tzardom having more limited equipment lists, I would imagine the Rus having a more expansive one, possibly more in line with the equipment of the Trench Pilgrims. Historically, the Rus has had strong trading connections to Byzantium, which lies in ruins in the Trench Crusade verse, so I would expect some Byzantine mercenaries similar to the Mamluk Paris to be more readily available for this sub-faction. Where I think the Tzardom to the north may be a more melee-focused New Antioch sub-faction, I would think that the Rus may lean more towards ranged warfare with more infiltrator support due to the Byzantine soldiers assisting their ranks. I would not be surprised to see an increase in trench moles and fast-moving units and Mamluk-like elites to create a well-equipped, fast-moving skirmish faction to mirror the Rus' advancements in logistics, trade and cultural development. The Kalmar Union, the kingdoms of Norway, Gothlands and Finlandia. Another region of the world traditionally seen as a hardy and tough people, associated with Viking culture, fast raiding warfare, but also a rich history of trade. I would think these regions would be a pilgrim sub-faction to reflect a hit-and-run, rapid assault style of war. However, unlike a pure Trench Pilgrim sub-faction, I think their rules may mix in elements of New Antioch and the Trench Pilgrims, replacing their anchorites with machine armour instead, and a well-balanced equipment list of both ranged and melee weaponry, with better access to machine guns and combat medics. As we know from the lore of the Hellmouth to the north, the Kalmar Union and the Tsardom of Novgorod both operate in the northern territories to defend from incursions from the gate. So I think a fast-moving pilgrim-style faction with access to mechanized infantry or possibly crusading knights would be a good balance to a New Antioch sub-faction for the Tsardom, whose elites I could envisage being more war beasts, a bit like Lions of Jabir, rather than machine infantry. Maybe they get cavalry riding war bears, for example. Next up we have the Teutonic Order, the noble houses of the Rus and other knightly references. So the Teutonic Order of Knights are a German Roman Catholic religious order in our own world history. They played an important role in the Northern Crusades and defended Christianity throughout Europe. I believe, although I might be wrong, that they are also partly responsible for the founding of Prussia. So clearly these are a reference to the Crusader orders in the game, and hopefully they get fleshed out into a full faction of their own, or given sub-faction rules for the Hebrew Knights. I'm very excited to see the knightly orders come to the game and seeing how elite they are. I think the Crusader Knights will be a huge individual ducat sink to field, making very small warbands, but each one will be a very powerful piece on the board, so watch this space because I'm very much looking forward to it. And then how could we talk about Crusading Knights and Crusader Orders without zooming in on Targovishta? We know the Wallachian Knights, the Order of the Dragon and Vampire Hussars are part of the game, including strong Dracula references. I did a whole video exploring the topic, and I think that they will be a very elite sub-faction for the Crusader Orders, so fingers crossed for some folklore-inspired units and mercenaries for them. Next up we have the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. When I spoke with Thomas on episode 1 of the Feel No Pain podcast, he was very much looking forward to finding a way to integrate Polish Hussars and the Winged Lancers into the game. I think warbands from this region will have a very cavalry-heavy presence, though for game balance reasons, much like the Golden Khanate, I doubt we'll see them for a while. Greece and the city-state of Athens comes up next, and Athens is a surprise inclusion on the map to me, because I would have thought that Trench Crusade fans would have liked to have seen the more warlike Sparta represented. However, I can understand why Athens was included for its rich militaristic, political and cultural history. In-game I could see the Athenians being a Trench Pilgrim sub-faction with possibly some gladiator-type elite units. Another good option for them would be powerful war beasts like Minotaurs instead of communicants, and maybe a War Hydra to replace the Anchorite. Or maybe they could be a lighter armoured version of the Synod or Hebrew Knights factions with oracles and mystics causing shenanigans on the battlefield. I'd like to see some Greek mythological creatures used as war beasts or communicants for them. And next we move on to Trebizond. So Trebizond will be an interesting location to get more lore for. It was one of the 3 successor states to the Byzantine Empire, going on to form the Trapezontine Empire. With Byzantium in ruins, the Black Sea at its back and the heretic lands surrounding it, it will be fun to see what style of warfare is brought to warbands from the region. Interestingly, it is protected by mountain ranges assisting in holding back the heretics, so I could see a style of war here mirroring the Iron Sultanate subfactions. Then we come to New Antioch, the Iron Sultanate, the Black City of Ekron, and the domains of Mammon. These are the beating heart of the setting and the closest locations to Jerusalem. I don't have much to say here as we already have their faction rules and some of the lore, but it's nice to see them represented on the map. So now we move over to the Golden Empire of Mali. So bordered by mountains and protected by the Kingdom of Numidia and the Coalition of Nubia, along with the expeditionary forces of Abyssinia, this is the final end goal location that Mammon is pushing to take over as he covets the gold mines of the Queen of Sheba and the riches of Mali and Axum. And then we come to the curious inclusion of a giant sea serpent. So I've seen some speculation that this is Leviathan, and while there is an upcoming narrative campaign involving a Project Leviathan, I don't think that is the same as the Demon Leviathan. Personally, I think that the Demon Leviathan is a pure demon and therefore wouldn't be able to take the field, so most likely sits on the seat of envy in the Court's Infernal War Council. What I think that these sea serpents are a reference to is the unexplored locations of old maps, with such warnings as "Here be dragons" or "Here be monsters." Just a nod back to old world map making, but a cool inclusion nonetheless. And then that circles us right up to the top of the map, and the location marked Ultima Thule. This is a very cool and unexpected reference, at least for me. Retrospectively, it should have been obvious that this would have been there as it is used in old world maps. So what is Ultima Thule? Ultima Thule means the farthest Thule, or historically has been used to reference far off, distant and unknown land beyond the known world. The exact location of Thule has been debated over the years, and some say that it was a depiction of Iceland or Greenland or Norway or any number of other northern regions unknown to that specific map's creator. Ultimately, in our own world's history, it became a metaphorical representation of far-off lands and unknown, mysterious northern landmasses. However, its inclusion here is no mistake, and I believe it will be a very real and very dangerous location in Trench Crusade. In Edgar Allan Poe's work, the Ultima Thule is a place at the extreme limits of travel and discovery. In his poem Dreamland, the last line reads, "I have reached these lands from an ultimate dim Thule, from a wild weird clime that lieth sublime out of space, out of time." The Ultima Thule was given the name by Sarah Helen Whitman, and is also the name of one of the most famous literary photographs of the 19th century that depicts them both, taking its name's inspiration from the closing line of Dreamland. In the Lovecraft mythos, Ultima Thule is a pre-human civilization inhabited by the Vormi, who are also worshippers of the Old One Tsardoms. The inclusion of Ultima Thule on the Trench Crusade map could be a nod to many different historical and literary references. However, in my opinion, I feel it's loosely intended to pay homage to old map making practices while also indicating a far off and distant landmass existing outside of space and time, occupied by bestial pre-humans that worship a terrible elder being as a god. In my opinion, I think it is the location and home of the cult of the lamprey. But then again, I suppose it could also imply that Trench Crusade takes place on a hollow earth. Anyway, what do you think about my thoughts and theories on the map's Easter eggs and newly revealed locations? Drop your theories and speculation below and let's start a discussion. Remember, my 2,000 subscriber Q&A is coming up, which will be hosted by none other than Scanner Barkley. So drop your questions for us in the comments below. If you'd like to support my work, please like, subscribe and share a favourite video with a friend. For discounts on your hobby supplies, check out my affiliate links below. And to discover my thoughts on the Wallachian Knights and the Vampire Hussars, click the video link to your left. Alternatively, to discover the lore of Mammon and his Knights of Avarice, you can do so by clicking the video link to your right. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all soon.